Brad Underwood says his team needs to get tougher if they're going to beat any of these top 5 teams. Reactions to Illinois' loss to UConn a couple days late, but with some perspective ahead. Let's go. Welcome to this edition of From Beyond Champaign, episode 10, season 3, I believe is what it is. I've lost count, but this is a few days after takeaways from Illinois' loss to UConn on Friday. Happy Thanksgiving weekend. Happy Black Friday, almost Cyber Monday weekend / Monday. I don't know what to say, but I'm Cody. If you haven't followed me on Twitter, you can follow me on Cody on Twitter at Cody_line. I've subscribed to the YouTube channel, went over 900 subs recently, which I appreciate you all. So we got to get to 1,000. That'd be a huge milestone for something that this has generally been really part-time for me. But when we are here, we go through the ups, we go through the downs, and there's certainly been a lot of ups and downs over the last 3 years doing this show. I would say this is a little bit of a dip down, but the world isn't over. The sky isn't falling. The sky's never falling with Illini basketball, in my opinion. I think there's definitely some times where we're very rationally angry because they've lost to some teams that they should beat, and they haven't won some games that maybe you're hoping or thought should have been closer. And I think that is what this game against Connecticut was. Connecticut in the AP poll, number 5 coming in to that game on Friday. Illinois at number 13. And they coming off they had the 2 bye games to try to prepare for this game against UConn, but mostly coming off the Alabama loss at the United Center, which I was at. And, Illinois led most of that game in the first half, and then second half couldn't make shots and led to them losing the game. And I feel like that carried over into most of this game against UConn, at least for the first 30 minutes. Illinois' offense finally got it going in the final 10 minutes, and we can get into how and why that happened. But the point is, it was too little too late, really, because you get down double digits against UConn and don't answer back quick enough. It's just a slow and steady, painful experience. And that essentially is what it was. I would say, if you didn't watch my video, I posted on my Twitter account and on my TikTok account on Friday, just right after the game, my overall thoughts. I would say the 3 bullet points that I went over was that if you're going to shoot 32% from the field, you're not going to beat anyone. And then my second bullet point was your stars have to show up in these type of games. And one of the 3 showed up. The one who showed up was Kylan Boswell. Andre Stojakovic and Tomislav Ivišić really did not, overall at least. I think Tommy played better in the final 10 minutes, but the first 30 minutes he didn't help Illinois stay in this game, really. And then my final bullet is just when this team doesn't make shots, how can we stay in the game and find a way to win? And I think Brad Underwood kind of highlighted that in his post game after the game. And I'll read this quote. This is from Illini Inquirer. I don't know if it was specifically a question asked by them to him and that he answered, but this is from an article they put out related to what's ahead. And Brad said, "We better get tougher. We better get tougher. It's nice we've got guys in practice. We get 8 days right now. That's huge." And he's talking about the 8 days before Tennessee this coming weekend. "We've got to grow in those 8 days. We need practice desperately. That showed today. I love where we can be. We have to figure out how to win and be tough. Winning is really, really hard when the ball doesn't go in. How do you do that?" And I think a lot of fans sit here and ask ourselves or ask Brad that question because it feels like it's the same story, same movie every time against these top teams. if Illinois doesn't make shots, how do they grind out some ugly wins? It feels like if you go back to beginning of last year and now the short part of this year, it feels like it's the same story, different day, where if everything doesn't go right for Illinois, they're going to lose the ball game. And this is true in all sports. Good teams, great teams, win ugly as well as in dominant fashion. And I feel like everything kind of went right for Illinois against Texas Tech. The game against Alabama was a tale of two halves. Like the first half was incredible. You felt like you were en route to a win in that game, and then they couldn't make shots in the second half. They had some bad turnovers, missed free throws in that game against Alabama, right? Like things that they hurt themselves, and then that led to a loss. And then this game against UConn, they shot 32%. And while I think that if you shoot 32%, it's going to be hard to beat anyone. UConn shot 41%, I believe is what it was. And like, it was an ugly game all around. Yeah, UConn shot 41%. If you told me before that game, if UConn would shoot 41% and score 74 points, I would tell you that Illinois is at least a 1 or 2 possession ahead or behind. Like that feels like a game that's really close. Instead, they lost by 13. So my biggest takeaway from this is that when things don't go right at all, they just kind of crumble. And I would understand that last year with a team that's 2 leaders were freshmen, but we're talking about a team that is way more experienced this year. Kylan Boswell is senior, right? Tommy is in his second year. Andre Stojakovic is a junior, I believe, right? Like there is more veteran leadership on this team than last year. There is not only more veteran leadership, but there is more talent on this team than last year. So my biggest takeaway for sure is that it concerns me that when things don't go right, like perfectly right, this Illini team so far seems to crumble. Now, you want me to go glass half full? This team has been hurt. They haven't had a lot of practice time to gel together. And I think that is a fair point. It might sound like an excuse, but let's remember, like, it is November. Do you want Illinois to peak right now, or do you want them to peak in March? I think we would all say we want them to peak in March. So while I would love for Illinois to win some of these big non-conference games, because Brad loves to schedule them, because I think theoretically he wants to see how his team can perform against these type of teams before going and playing in one of the toughest college basketball conferences in January and February, and see where they are and use it as a building block. But at the same time, it'd be nice to win some of these. It would be. They went 2-2 last year. They beat Arkansas, who turned out to be meh. They should have beat Tennessee last year. They did not, because of basically this exact same thing. They couldn't make shots at all against Tennessee last year. They beat Mizzou, whatever. They weren't very good last year. They lost to Alabama last year. So they beat Mizzou and Arkansas in the non-conference last year. They beat Wisconsin in December, but that's a conference game. So, like, my point is you beat Texas Tech. That's a good team. That's a good team. I think that's better than last year's Arkansas team. JT Toppin is a dog, and he's going to go to the NBA one day and be really good, right? This UConn team, top 5 in the country, and Dan Hurley is, if not the best coach in college basketball, one of the best coaches in college basketball. And then Nate Oates, he's got a really solid track record, and it pisses me off that Alabama is good at both football and basketball. Genuinely, it pisses me off. But he is a great coach, and he has brought in loads of talent to that team over the years in the last 5 years. So I would say this year's non-conference schedule is a lot tougher than last year's, but in many ways, Brad did this because this team should be better than last year's. So, yeah, I just think that there's a lot of growing to do with this team. And I think that right now, The biggest key for this Illinois team is to continue to stay healthy, because it seems like they're now healthy. Tommy didn't do full practices for, I believe, 2 months. That is what is reported. 2 months he didn't do full practicing. So he's been getting his conditioning back, and he's in all this, right? Mihailo Petrovic, the whole process of getting eligible, and then he has dealing with multiple injuries. He's back. He's finally back. He's working his way back. Hopefully, and when I say hopefully, I truly believe this, he will be better, right? And you get those two guys going to go with what you're getting out of Kylan Boswell. And I know Andrei Stojakovic had a terrible game against UConn, but he had a great game against Alabama. He had a great game against Texas Tech. It was a stinker of a game. I think he'll be better. He'll be fine, right? So, yeah, we go through the box score and look at some of the reasons why they lost this game. It's really not hard, in my opinion, because even though UConn shot 41%, again, if you shoot 32%, like that's a big margin. 32%, 19 of 60. And everyone, and I think this is just PTSD, but everyone on the line on Twitter is talking about how they're shooting too many threes. UConn shot 28. Illinois shot 29. UConn made 10. So UConn makes 10 threes, Illinois makes 6. Is that the difference? They lost by 13, 74-61, right? Like a handful of those threes. I will say that Illinois had a lot of wide open looks. They got to make some of these, man. They got to make some of these, right? Like Kylan Boswell was great. He was great in this game, but even he went 2 of 8 from 3, Maybe he shouldn't have taken some of the ones he did, if there's one thing to knock on him. You look at the box score, Zvonimir, Big Z, 0 of 5 from 3, right? David Mirkovic, 0 of 4 from 3. Like, those guys at least make 1 or 2. That's not only going to force UConn's defense to do something different, but also, like, this game's a little bit closer. So I don't hate that they took 29 threes. What I hate is that when things aren't going right, what are you going to do to grind it out? You know what I mean? Because I say this again, like, you look at the margin of everything else, it's not that much different. Maybe the rebounding, like, I think Illinois is good enough and big enough to win the rebounding margin every game. And I believe now it's 2 straight games they haven't won the rebounding margin. I don't believe that they won the rebounding margin against the last two, the 2 bye games, but against Alabama, I don't think they did. And if they did, it was not by much. But 43-38 on the total rebounds. Illinois is better than that, man. They have too much size to not win the rebounding margin every game. Right? I'll give them credit. They had 13 offensive rebounds. I'll give them that. But the 43-38 is not that big of a difference, right? Then you look at second chance points. UConn had 11. Illinois had 9. Bench points. UConn had 31. Illinois had 11. That is largely why I think UConn ended up winning this game. They just got more production out of other guys than Illinois did. Illinois, like, they were in this game because of Kylan Boswell, largely. They didn't get enough contributions from anyone else. Points in the paint, 24-24. Blocks, 7-5, UConn. Steals, 7-3, UConn, I guess. Like, is that a big margin? I don't know. Assists, 19-10. They move the ball better, right? So when I look at this box score, like, I'm just, turnovers, 10-10. There's just not a lot of things in the box score that like stand out outside of the fact that UConn just straight up scored the ball better. And Illinois got to find a way to score points if those 3-point shots aren't falling. They're getting the offensive boards when they miss them. They had 13 of them. So maybe I should be saying they should be getting more downhill. They have guys who can get downhill. And I'll go into that by saying, like, Andrei Stojakovic, again, I think it's just one stinker of a game. It's a learning moment for him. And, he went from playing at Stanford and Cal, 2 programs that are not nearly as good as this Illinois program. And they didn't play teams as good as the teams that Illinois has played. But against Texas Tech, or not Texas Tech, even Alabama. Let's just go Alabama. He had a better game against Alabama. What did Andrei Stojakovic do? He went to the basket. 1 of 7 from the field in this game. Only took 2 threes. And he made one. The one basket he made was a 3-pointer. But only 7 shots, 25 minutes, and Brad sat him like the final 10 minutes of the second half because he just wasn't giving them any energy. He had 0 rebounds, right? Like, he just gave them absolutely nothing. I think it was minus 16 on the plus-minus scale. And like, not only when I say that stars have to show up in these games, if your shot's not falling, you got to find a way to get into the game. So maybe if he had rebounded more, or maybe if he had a higher assists total, he had 2, I wouldn't be so hard on him. But if you were brought in to be one of the stars of this team and you just give us 3 points on 1 of 7 shooting and nothing else against one of the best teams in the country, I don't care how good UConn's defense is and what it's designed to do to take stars out of the game. I don't care. Like, if you are supposed to be a star, you have to find a way to impact the game. And in all facets of the game, he did not do that. Why is he not trying to get to the basket? Why is he not trying to force the issue to get to the foul line? 0 free throws. 0. I don't know, man. I don't know. It's, again, I think it's just one stinker, and it's a learning experience for him. But he's got to be better. In any of these games against Tennessee it would be 6 days now. Against Tennessee, he's got to be better than that. And Illinois is going to need 2 of the 3 stars to show up against Tennessee. So that's one of my big things. Is the stars need to show up, and you got to find a way to score the ball when the shots aren't falling from the outside. Who should I blame on that? Should I blame Brad on that, or should I blame the players? I think it's a little bit of both at the end of the day. I can blame Brad because it feels like, again, we're watching the same story. Same thing over and over, it feels like sometimes. But the only reason I'm not going to put too much on Brad here is because, A, he hasn't had his entire team healthy for the last couple months. And these next, call it 8 days, going from the end of that loss to next Saturday in Nashville, he is going to have practice time with a full roster. Even Brandon Lee's back, right? So outside of Ty Rodgers, right? But they are going to need to utilize his practice time and then come out and show it against Tennessee for me to, not necessarily not blame Brad, but they got to come out and show that this practice time actually means something. And I do genuinely feel like it does mean something for in terms of continuity. Because, yeah, even though you have Kylan, Benham Rickhouse, Jake Davis, Tommy, and that's really it in terms of guys from last year. Like, you're still implementing new pieces. Like Keaton Wagler, haven't even mentioned his name. He had a terrible game too. Terrible game. Keaton Wagler, 3 points on 1 of 3 shooting. 1 rebound, 1 assist, 14 minutes. Like, he's just a non-factor in this game. All right. So, I think for him, as a freshman, I can't be that hard on him, but he's shown a lot of growth this first month of the year, where it's like, this guy could be a true X factor for you in March. So we'll see. But overall, again, I'll state it one more time. My big 3 bullet points. Can't shoot 32% against anyone and expect to win. You need your stars to show up in these big games, and they didn't in this one. And then, how are we going to grind out some ugly games? How are we going to grind out some ugly games? I say this too. I think back to one of my favorite Illini teams. I know the ending of it was brutal because they lost to Loyola, but that Illinois team that was a number 1 seed in the I think it was March of 2021. Yeah, it was like the COVID pandemic March Madness, right? Throughout that year, though, they had won some ugly games, and Ayo Dosunmu saved them so many times. They won some ugly games, but they defended, and that's how it kept them in it. So I'm not being too hard on the defense here because UConn shot 41% for the game, but you got to find a way to win ugly. We'll just put it simply: find a way to win ugly. So. Now I want to shift a little bit more positive, and I think mostly the positive from this game was Kylan Boswell. Kylan Boswell, as it says here to the right on the screen, Kylan Boswell is him. This kid from Champaign. I love watching this guy play basketball, man. This guy, I said it before, I'll say it again. This team goes as he goes. But you know what? He did everything he could to keep this team afloat. He did everything he could to keep this team somewhat in the game. 25 points on 8 of 16 shooting, 7 of 7 from the free throw line, 9 rebounds, 3 assists in 39 minutes. So essentially played all but 1 minute. All but 1 minute. There's not much I can say. I mean, earlier I did say, he took 8 threes and only made 2 of them. He's been better as a 3-point shooter this year, I think. I don't know what the percentage is overall, but he's had some nice games shooting the ball. And I just think he's really been a leader for this team. He's really shown to be a leader of this team so far. And I think he did everything he could. But he had that chip on his shoulder after that loss to Duke at MSG last season and came to MSG this year and made sure that Illinois wasn't going to get embarrassed in this game. And you could sit here and say, well, it's not a moral victory, Cody. Like, this game should have been closer. I agree. I absolutely agree. But again, you put some of the context in. This team has had injuries. This team hasn't practiced together in 2 months and all this and that. I'm not using it as an excuse, but I am saying that I still believe this team will be better before January 1st when they play whoever in the Big Ten season. I know they're going to play. They got 2 Big Ten games in December. But when we get to January, which is when truly, in many ways, is when things really start to matter, because you need to win as many games as you can in non-conference. But do we want to win the Big Ten? Do we want to be able to say we can compete with Michigan and Purdue? No one's talking about that. Everyone's talking about we can't beat these top teams, blah, blah, blah. Well, we're going to have some opportunities. We get to play Michigan. We get to see if Morez Johnson's going to have the revenge game, or we're going to slow him down. And then Purdue, they're the number 1 team in the country. They just beat the living shit out of my alma mater, Eastern Illinois, the other day. Couldn't cover the 41.5. I was ready to hang the banner if they did, though. I was ready to hang the banner if they did. But, they beat Alabama. Illinois couldn't, though. But what I'm getting at is they're going to have opportunities to show that they are worthy of being considered a top team in the country. And I just think these non-conference games, I'm not going to sit here and say they're must win. They help your resume, no doubt. But I think Brad views them as more as measuring stick games, and then take those games and learn from how you can get better moving forward. There's a lot of season left. And again, I would rather Illinois peak in March than right now. So there's a lot of things to work on. But the one thing that is working these days is Kylan Boswell. And as long as he stays healthy and as long as he continues to play that he is playing, this team will be fine. They will win some games. They will be fun to watch. So really happy for him in many ways that he at least had a better showing in this game than against Duke. I mean, everyone talked about how he slowed down Cooper Flagg, and that was our big takeaway from that game against Duke. But that was just an embarrassing loss. And that is probably my biggest thing to be happy about in this game too, is just you went to Madison Square Garden, you faced the team that put a 30-0 run on you in the NCAA tournament a few years ago, and you didn't get blown out. You didn't get embarrassed. That's, if you want to call it a moral victory, it's a moral victory, but I would call it just a step in the right direction. So, but no doubt, it's a disappointing loss. Is it a disappointing loss or is it a disappointing showing? Like if they lost by 1 or 2 possessions, I think we'd all been angry because it just when it's a close game, you feel even more. You feel even more anger because you feel like if they had made this free throw or that free throw, they probably win this game or something like that, right? Instead, you felt like it was a 10-point game throughout, and hell, it got to like 20, 21 points at one point, right? For me, I guess this is, in many ways, you can look at it as a blessing in disguise. We'll see how they respond against Tennessee. And if there's anything I know about Brad Underwood and Brad Underwood teams, after a loss like this and with time to prepare, they will have a much better showing against Tennessee on a neutral court next week. So, other things to take away or to talk about, I wanted to talk about Tomislav Ivišić. All right. One of the reasons I think that they have lost these last 2 games against Alabama and UConn. I'm not even counting the bye games. The bye games are just games that you use to try and figure out what rotation you want to use guys in, right? Mihailo Petrovic had a good game in one of those 2 bye games, which is a good sign. Didn't have a great game against UConn. I did think that he wasn't afraid of the moment. Like I felt like he late in that game, he in many ways led. Like he got guys in position to score, and we just couldn't make certain shots because we shot 9 of 60. But Mihailo Petrovic, 2 points on 1 of 7 shooting, 2 assists, 2 rebounds in 18 minutes. I want to talk about him, and I want to talk about Tommy. All right. I think they need to start Mihailo with Kylan moving forward. I think if you move Keaton Wagler to the bench, I don't think it's going to hurt his confidence. He's a freshman. And if Keaton Wagler is like your scoring option off the bench with, Brandon Lee and I don't know, Zvonimir Ivišić, there are worse scenarios, right? But I think getting Mihailo out there, that way you can have more than one primary ball handler, because that other ball handler is Kylan Boswell. If you could get 2 quote-unquote primary ball handlers out there, that will help this team. And I do think the 2-man game between him and Tommy Ivišić could be something that could be lethal. I do, because they did it a little bit in the second half in that final 10 minutes. And that's when Illinois' offense finally showed up. It was too little too late, but they did play better in the final 10 minutes. And I felt like Mihailo and Tommy played better, and they were on the court together. I don't know. Let me know your thoughts on that, because I think that is something. There's something there. I think they should start Petrovic against Tennessee. Now, Tommy, listen, what, tonsillitis? He got his tonsils out. Like, I got my tonsils out when I was a kid. From my experience, your you don't feel great for a while, right? And then if you're not, in his case, you're not playing, you're not practicing, all these things. And then he had the knee injury, which set him back a little bit. Like, he's coming back. Now against Alabama, he was awful. Maybe I shouldn't have been so hard on him because it was his first game back. But for a guy who's projected to go in the first round of the NBA draft next year, I have higher standards for him. He was terrible against Alabama. He was terrible for the first 30 minutes of this game against UConn. I will say that he defended the guy he had to guard, who was one of UConn's best players. Pretty well in that first half. I think he only made made one or two baskets. But in the final 10 minutes, he was a lot more aggressive. He got in the post, did that jump hook. They ran a couple pick and rolls with him, and he looked more engaged in that final 10 minutes of second half. So my thing is, hopefully he is back now. Hopefully that 10 minutes helped him. In this week of practice, he is going to come out and play a great game against Tennessee because they desperately need him to be. They need him to be that second or third option. Because in my opinion, when they aren't hitting those outside shots, they can go to him in the post. They can go high post, and then guys cut, and he's a great passer. You know what I mean? They can go pick and pop with him, and he can make a decision or shoot the ball. Like, he is such a great passer that, to me, when the offense goes through him, I think the offense will probably be more efficient. So if I'll say this, if the coaching staff doesn't feel like he is conditioned to a point of playing his best, then don't start him. But if the coaching staff feels like he is, then you need to start him and you need to play him more minutes. He's got some time now to prepare for this Tennessee game. And that, to me, that is key. That will be big. On the other hand, his brother was absolutely atrocious against UConn. And listen, I know he had like 5 blocks. He had all 5 of the blocks for Illinois in this game. He was very frustrating to watch shoot the ball, though. I mean, the air ball he threw up in the second half, I wanted to turn the game off, and I didn't. But I think he's still trying to figure out his role now that his brother's back. Because I thought it was an opportunity for him whenever Tommy first got hurt, and we all thought Tommy was going to be out longer because it was a knee. And I mean, he had a fine game. He had a fine game against Texas Tech, and then these last 2 games, he is against good teams, at least Alabama and UConn. He is just, at least from an offensive standpoint, he's been terrible. Can this guy do more offensively than just shoot the 3 ball? Should I be more mad at Brad for just telling him to only shoot 3s? Is that a thing? I think it's a mixture of both. This guy is too big, too athletic to just be a 3-point shooter. This guy needs to do more on the inside. And if he's not going to score, he needs to rebound. 4 rebounds. Come on, man. 7 feet tall, 4 rebounds. We need more than that. We need more of that. I don't care that he only played 17 minutes. We need more. We need more. All right. So I would say my three negatives, or for player wise, we should make this a segment. My 3, like, I used to tweet all the time, like, these guys should do suicides for the next day or whatever. I'm giving suicides to Andrei Stojakovic, Zvonimir Ivišić, and Keaton Wagler. The 3 of them combine 3 for 17 from the field, and 5 rebounds and 3 assists. 3 of them combined. That just ain't gonna get it done, brother. Just not gonna get it done. You gotta be better than that. That's one of your stars and 2 role players. I can sit here and complain about how Brad runs his offense and all this, We can sit here and do that. You can sit here and talk about how Ben Hummerkaus plays too many minutes. He had 5 points in 26 minutes. Should Ben Hummerkaus play 26 minutes? I'll say this. I think he defends better than some of the guys that they're putting out there. Sometimes I feel like he defends better than Zvonimir. Zvonimir has solid shot blocking, but can he guard his guy? I don't know. I don't know. For the position that Ben Hummerkaus is playing, which is more of a stretch 4, I guess if Illinois wants to play real small, he could play the 5, but like who else you want to go out there and play a spot? Mirkovic, I guess, but I haven't really talked about him, but 3 of 10 on 10 8 points on 3 of 10 shooting, so 8 points on 10 shots. Not a good game. 0-4 from 3. He did have 8 rebounds, I'll give him that much, but Mirkovic has looked awesome in against a lot of the lower tier talented teams. But against some of the power schools, not so great. Not so great so far. But it's early, and I still think he's a guy, and he will be better as the season goes along. But at least he's giving you something. At least he's giving you something on the rebounding stage, or I think he certainly feels the confidence to go out there and shoot the ball 10 times. No, only Boswell had more than 10 shots. So they just need to find some continuity. That, to me, that is it. They got to find some continuity now that this team is healthy, and they get to go up against Tennessee, and then you got a couple Big Ten games. You got Mizzou in the bragging rights game, right? Like, there's still plenty to look forward to here in December. So, but yeah, Stojakovic, Wagler, Ivišić, Big Z, those guys they should be running suicides for the next week. And as far as guys who, positive, guys who can take a break, guys who don't have to run suicides, I'll give it to Kylan Boswell. And that's it, really. I mean, Petrovic and Tommy played better down the stretch, but they would have been in this game if Tommy had played better the first 30 minutes. But it doesn't mean that I don't think that he can be better moving forward. And before we get out of here, I do want to mention this quote from Tommy, before we get out of here. And they were talking about, his tale of two halves. He said, "My goal in the first half was to stop their big guy, Reed. He's their best player, best scorer, and I just couldn't allow him to start getting a lot of points on low posts, and I feel like I did an okay job there, a pretty good job. He didn't play very well. I just had one silly turnover. I just felt like the second half, I just needed to do more offensively too. We all got to get some stops, run, push the ball, what we do every day in practice. That's it." Easier said than done, but he did do well defensively in the first half, but I just think when this guy's one of your top 3 players on the team, you got to find a way to do both, man. That's just what it is. You just got to find a way. And so that's, to me, the big picture is preparing for Tennessee. The big picture, you got a week to prepare for Tennessee. So anyway, I've rambled long enough. I appreciate y'all's support. I will be in Nashville next Saturday. So if you're heading to the Illinois-Tennessee game in Nashville, let me know. You can DM it to me or tweet at me at Cody_Illini. Let me know in the comments if you're going here on YouTube. And leave a 5-star review on podcast, wherever you listen to it, on Apple or Spotify. And I appreciate y'all's support. Help me get to 1,000 subscribers. We'll see y'all in the next episode. Maybe do a little 1 or 2 player focus here this week before we head off to Nashville. Hopefully. I won't promise. I'm done making promises here because my life is just so crazy right now with working 2 jobs. So I'm sorry for being a couple of days late on this, but doing the best I can. So stick with me. And I appreciate y'all's support as always. We'll see you on the next episode. ILL. Love you guys.